Hey y'all, and welcome to Brawl. My name is Brian, and this reporter tries to catch Chip Roy between a rock and a hard place, only for him to make her completely regret ever going into journalism as a career. Let's dive in.
Congressman, would you be supportive of Elon Musk doing what he said he was going to do in that interview, which is cut entitlements, essentially?
So put it in context of what he was actually talking about. First of all, he said $700 billion. That is a tiny fraction of the total amount. And why? Because what he's talking about is eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. He's been identifying duplicate
the entire cost
numbers.
of Medicaid is basically what he was saying there, that $700 billion number. It's not the $500 million that many people say is often the number for Medicare or Medicare Advantage
Keep
fraud.
in mind, but Casey, keep in mind what's happening here. We are now dealing with the expansion population under Obama, where able-bodied individuals are getting a 90% federal funding compared to the vulnerable and the elderly and the sick, who are only getting 50 to 75% because Obamacare was structured in a bad way. You have enormous amount of fraud under Medicaid. You have illegal aliens getting Medicaid. You have California gaming Medicaid in order to get money.
Do you really think there's
$700
billion worth of fraud and waste in Medicaid? $700 billion? I mean, it's the cost of the whole thing.
Okay, well, Casey, let me give you a number that might mean something. The 2021 CBO budget baseline compared to the 2025 CBO budget baseline, a $1.2 trillion increase. Significant amounts of that is waste, fraud, and abuse. Significant amounts of that is illegal aliens. Significant amounts of that are able-bodied citizens as compared to the vulnerable. That's what we need to sort out.
Do you think you can cut $700 billion without touching law-abiding American citizens who are entitled to their benefits under Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid? I mean, do you think that's really possible in these programs? $700 billion with a B?
Yeah, well, first of all, remember that we've gone from $4.5 trillion of spending, Casey, in 2019 to $7 trillion in 2025. We've identified $1 trillion in improper payments. That means money that's going to the wrong people and money that's going in the wrong amounts. There's plenty of us to be able to go find the waste, fraud, and abuse, make sure it's going to the right people. But again, I'm being very specific. I actually believe in work requirements. Most Americans do it. Polls at like 80%. You should work if you're able-bodied, and then those are the kinds of ways that you can save money. And Elon was just simply saying, not just in Medicaid, but broadly, when you have duplicate Social Security numbers, where you have known fraud in Medicaid and Medicare. I worked in the Attorney General's office in Texas, and the Medicaid fraud division there was very busy because of so much fraud. We can do a better job getting the actual dollars to the people who are supposed to get them under the programs, like the vulnerable under Medicaid.
Yeah. President Trump, of course, on the campaign trail said over and over and over and over again that he's not going to cut Social Security and he's not going to cut Medicare. Where are you on this? I mean, do you stand with the president on that? Do you stand with what Elon Musk is apparently saying here?
Well, again, let me be clear about what Elon's saying. He's saying find the waste, fraud, and abuse, the duplication, and those things that you can find in the.
But that's not what he. I mean, that's not what he said. I just want to know, like, are you with President Trump on cutting Medicare and Social Security, on not doing that?
But to be clear, that is what Elon was talking about. And on Social Security, under what we're going to deal with in terms of reconciliation, we're legally not allowed to talk about Social Security, touch Social Security under the law. Medicare, the president is saying we're going to preserve the benefits for people who have played into Medicare, and now we need to get busy finding what we can in food stamps and Medicaid under the reconciliation process and get the tax policies in place so you don't have the biggest tax increase in history on the American people. I think that's the right approach. Do we need to find a way to make Social Security solvent by 2033? Yes, it will be insolvent by 2033. Do we need to find a way to make healthcare prices go down so that Medicare can actually be there for seniors? Yes, because right now it's exploding off the charts. The costs are unbearable for the average American family that's a working class family that's got insurance or doesn't, or they're a senior citizen under Medicare. We've got so much work we need to do, but the priority right now is waste, fraud, and abuse, DOJ doing their job, and yes, some reforms in with respect to Medicaid so that we can actually stop the bleeding under Biden that was funding illegals and funding the able-bodied at the expense of the vulnerable.
Leave it to Chip Roy to actually slowly unpack the litany of our problems that have been caused by government going either too crazy, government being too wasteful, or in some cases, government just being, hoodwinked. The waste, fraud, and abuse. So let's start off with one obvious thing. Elon Musk is just built different. He is a different breed of cat. Now, it's not because he's just this super genius, because he's a genius in his own right. It's not because he's so forward-thinking and he wants to take us to Mars. It's because the dude has an unusual work ethic, has a completely different mindset that just the vast majority of people don't have, and sprinkle a little bit of autism, and you get a dude who is going to look at a situation like our federal government a whole lot differently than he would his own business. And the dude was famous for wanting to flaunt a whole bunch of safety regulations because he didn't like the color yellow. Oh, okay. So again, this is a little bit of a, let's see, what's the best way to put this? I imagine a whole bunch of y'all have had bosses who have just been a little bit too uptight for one weird reason or another, but it turns out that they work harder than anyone else at the office. And then, as it also turns out, this dude wants you to match their energy. Now, that's just not going to be possible. And again, that's when you sprinkle on a little bit of autism there, and that's when you realize that, oh, Elon probably should be setting certain tones, but he shouldn't be leading it directly. After all, he is not a government employee, and he doesn't make the decisions. And so whenever Elon is caught on a hot mic saying something, you need to take it not only with a grain of salt, but an understanding that President Trump might take his word, he might not. In some extreme cases, definitely it's not going to be the case. And then when you have guys like Chip Roy saying, look, this is what Congress can do. We can't take away Social Security and Medicare. We can talk about having better legislation to clean things up, but that's the whole purpose of Doge. That is what Donald Trump ran on. And furthermore, here's some other major issues that we need to be talking about, because Elon Musk shouldn't be the dude taking up all the spotlight here. We have got to talk about how there's too much red tape still in our Medicare system because of the way our healthcare is. Our healthcare has become a monstrous nightmare, and it got worse thanks to Obamacare. It basically gave these corporations, it gave Big Pharma, it gave the insurance companies the ability to work together a little bit more and add more layers to their system. The more layers to a system, the more expensive it is. And the more layers to a cake, the more expensive the cake. Now, we don't need cake. We need IV fluids. We need nurses. We need doctors. We need that pipeline working to make sure that we can replace the doctors, because it isn't that good out there. Let's be honest, there's an ugly truth. The reason that we have so many people that come from outside the United States that study to be a doctor here, and they might have an accent when you come in and you deal with these doctors, but you know what? They have your best interest at heart, mainly because they're getting paid through the nose. They make a boatload of money off of this, and that's because we don't open up our own pipelines here in America quite enough. And then, of course, you also have the very real problem that is fraud, okay? I'm not saying it's easy to commit fraud here in the United States, but the way our system works with both the IRS, and from the IRS all the way to the Department of Driver Services, isn't just arcane, it's straight up Byzantine. This stuff is ancient, this stuff is old. I think the real reason Elon Musk is on board isn't because he wants to stick it to the libs. That's one reason, but that's why he is the way he is on Twitter. I think the real reason is he sees an opportunity to streamline a whole lot of our bureaucracy by using artificial intelligence and then using those automated systems in order to keep the sludge moving even faster. So, DC bureaucrats, I'm going to be honest, your days are numbered. Okay? And it's not because we're cutting your jobs right now. It's because we're going to develop a way to make things easier to replace a whole lot of you. The good news is we're not going to be replacing our rangers anytime soon, no matter what the Trump administration did to the National Park Service. And don't get me started on that one. But we're not going to be replacing our rangers. We're not going to be replacing the janitors. We're not going to be replacing the people that actually make the buildings work. We're going to be replacing the process itself. So that means the people that work in certain areas, basically giving their little stamps of approval, that's going to go away very soon. That's at least my prediction with Elon Musk. And what Chip Roy is really trying to talk about is he wants to talk about his arena. He wants to talk about what the Congress can actually do, because this dude really cares about the Constitution. Okay, he wants the constitutional process to work out correctly and not give the president too much power or the courts too much power. After all, the voice of the people is literally the lower chamber of Congress, and not the Senate, not the White House, and not the Supreme Court. The voice of the people comes from Congress. Chip Roy is a congressman. So he wants good legislation that's airtight, that's going to make things work better for the entire system while staying underneath the umbrella that is our Constitution. We've been facing a slow constitutional crisis, and it's something that we don't like talking about too much. And I'm talking about the slow burn ever since Woodrow Wilson essentially thought that unelected government bureaucrats should make all the decisions, including the legislative ones. He hated the legislative branch. FDR despised the legislative branch and the Supreme Court because they both looked at him and said, this is technically not legal, but because of the Great Depression, we're going to give you too much leeway anyways. That has ended in near disaster, not just for America, but for our governmental process. And if that's going to become a problem, well, guess what? The Supreme Court now is starting to look at a whole lot of these issues. The reason why Chevron has been such a huge case is it's ultimately admitting that Congress is not only the voice of the people, but that's where policy should originate. That's where policy is supposed to come from. And it's up to the executive branch to enforce that vision. That's the way our system is supposed to work. So that's what Chip Roy is about. And then when it comes to making sure that we're not wasting our tax dollars, that dude is on it, I think, better than almost any other representative in Congress. And then he understands the whole point and purpose of Doge, and that is to make sure that our government isn't wasting money. Okay, that's what's going on in this clip. And meanwhile, you have this reporter just being dismissive, on the borderline of being disgusting during the whole time. This is completely unprofessional. CNN, do better. I'm glad you're smart enough to have Chip Roy on your programs, but seriously, this reporter ain't it. Get someone else. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.